While it may be a bit late, we are finally reviewing Sweet Reincarnation from the summer season. Now, this was an isekai that I didn't really have much hope for. The premise sounded very gimmicky and iffy and didn't really have much hope for it, but it turned out better than I expected and turned out to be fairly enjoyable. Now, in this review, I will be talking about what I like about this show and why you may want to watch it now that it is all over and done with to enjoy a nice afternoon. To quickly go over the summary here. Of course, it's an isekai, so of course it will employ a lot of the tropes you all know about in terms of isekai, but it does offer some more unique aspects that I found refreshing and that sets it a bit aside from the most generic general isekai you will find season to season. Of course, none of us are strangers to someone being isekai'd, waking up as a young child in a new world and being super powerful and knowledgeable and basically better than everyone else, no matter how old they may be in this world. And he just casually dealing with his circumstances with no real skill or effort needed. But in this one, while yes, Pastry does become powerful in the sense that he has a ability that over time can be incredibly potent and make him the most powerful in the world, basically, at least in premise, he doesn't really use his power a lot in this anime. Most of the time, you focus on his wits, his intelligence, him sweet-talking and positioning himself and setting things up for himself and his fiefdom through his wits more or less exclusively, and that I found really refreshing. He very rarely, if at all, uses his power outside a few action sequences, and that was nice to see. Might not be what you're looking for if you just want a really mindless power fantasy, but it's a nice refreshing take that we don't usually get in isekai. And while the show may namesake sweets, thankfully it was a portion of the show that was fairly absent and not really delved too deeply into. I was worried it was going to be super gimmicky with the show name and premise. I mean, for God's sake, the main character is named Pastry, the father is named Casserole. Like, it's a very gimmicky show in that respect, but to me it seems more like this author thought, okay, let's make an isekai about sweets and reincarnating in another world, being obsessed with sweets. But after he started the show or started writing the novels, whatever, he thought, you know what, I can make a better story, but I can't get rid of the sweet element now. It's so deeply embedded in the story, so I'll just have it be a sort of subplot and not really a big narrative drive. And that's how it ended up being in season 1, which I overall enjoyed, even though when the sweet elements came up, I was like, okay, more sweets, I guess, get it over with, continue with the story. But they did at least, overall, use sweet making in an intelligent enough way with the narrative without making it forced, shoehorned in there. Now, to get more properly into their review, as I mentioned, the sweet portion was the weakest part of the story for me, but it was not purely used as a gimmick, so I forgive it to an extent. The most interesting part for me, and what I enjoyed the most, was definitely the geopolitics, the positioning yourself in your house, and how you talk to each other as nobles or people in power, right? How you speak around things, speak in code, and just do the political game. I really enjoyed how they covered that in general, even though I had some criticisms here and there. But it all coming back to this nation building in the end of Pastry, having his fiefdom, being small and poor basically, with him over time, over the course of season 1, building this up to be not a small nation yet, of course, but slowly building up the influence and the power and the prestige of his fiefdom, and eventually making it into his own kingdom, probably. And that journey I found nice. I found it entertaining. I enjoyed it. Like seeing him start planting these new crops, or getting goats, or like getting resources and building up aqueducts and whatever in his fiefdom. I really enjoyed seeing him enrich himself and his community and just building up this nation that he was starting to do at the end of season 1. And again, I will reaffirm my happiness that they did use his wits so much in this show and didn't rely on his powers much at all. It was really nice just have intelligent conversations, even though, of course, people keep being surprised with how smart he is, being just 10 years old in this world, whatever. But it was done fairly well, and none of the characters seemed stupid. What I mean by that is that often, especially with authors that don't really know what they're doing, will make especially the antagonists extremely stupid so that the protagonist, or the good guy, so to speak, seem smarter. Now, this is really bad writing, because if you can see through easily what someone is doing, especially the antagonists, you wonder to yourself, how in the world did they get to that position if they are this stupid? But thankfully in this show, I would say all the plot and the general, well, not every single detail, but generally the plot and the plots of the people and the planning and the angles that each and every character was going for seemed to be rationally self-centered and be intelligent enough so that while Pastry could outsmart someone now and again or often, he did so in a way that was even smarter, right? It's not like we're starting at a really low level, but we're starting at a level of, okay, everyone here is competent. It's just Pastry being a step above the rest, which makes him able to squeeze out these extra things and benefits that others would not have. But just that each character, even the antagonists, feel like actual characters and not NPCs is something I quite appreciated and still appreciate, as it is far too often really done in anime, or isekai for that matter, especially isekai. They usually make the villains not necessarily stupid, but not that intelligent, which I think is pretty sad. As a whole though, what do I think of this show and season 1 of this show? Well, I mean, as I said, I really like the nation building aspect. Just on that aspect alone, I think this is worth a watch. Yeah, you might not enjoy all the characters, like I didn't really care for a lot of the characters outside of Pastry himself. Like, the father is okay, and some other characters like Licorice, the fiancé, is okay, I guess. But a lot of the characters I didn't really care for, didn't really bother learning too much about them, they didn't seem too interesting. But I think Pastry is good enough to carry the show and my enjoyment of the show. It's not going to be an amazing show, it's not going to be something you laugh your ass off of, like Eminence in Shadow, for example. It's not going to be a really deep, amazing isekai like Mushoku Tensei or anything of that sort. But it's something that does enough unique things and has a unique enough setting with an interesting enough main character handling interesting enough situations that you will watch it and generally enjoy it. At least that was my experience with this show. So if you're just looking for a more than decent isekai from the summer season, then I would recommend giving Sweet Reincarnation a try. Maybe you will like it. With that being said, hope you enjoyed this season 1 review. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff to support my channel. If you have any questions or anything else, leave those in the comment section down below. And if you want to watch another review of a show from last season or from the summer season, click right here.